Today on Doomed! Gab. The gift that keeps on giving. Today on the show, everybody, I bring you Michael Edison Hayden, Senior Investigative Reporter with the Southern Poverty Law Center, to talk about the website known as Gab.com. Free speech website or white supremacists' favorite social network? I guess you will decide after today's show, or maybe during it even. Let's pull up Michael right now. Give me 1 second here. All right, Michael, welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here.
Sorry about that. It took a second. I had a little bit of a technical difficulty on my end, but we're all good now. Everything's perfect. All right, Michael, thank you so much for joining me today. And I wanted you on the show because you've been someone who's been covering Gab.com. Well, now it's Gab.com. It wasn't always Gab.com. We get into that.
Yeah, it was Gab.ai.
Right. We get into that in a little bit. But I wanted you on the show because you've been reporting on Gab for a long time. And for long-time listeners of Doomed, I've been covering Gab, actually. I've had Kelly Weil of the Daily Beast on the show, and we've discussed Gab. But today we're going to go really deep inside what's going on with Gab because, the timing is actually perfect. I had reached out to you last week, and then literally yesterday, this big thing happens with Gab where the site goes behind a paywall, and its founder has some sort of meltdown. But again, we'll get into that shortly. But right before we went live, and I'm sorry for talking while right after I introduced you.
Yeah.
But I received these tweets, and you saw them, right, Michael?
Yes, I did. Yeah, of course.
I received these tweets from the official Gab Twitter account. Apparently, Gab saw that I was doing a show, and I was having you on as a guest to talk about the site, which is totally cool. And I think, people who listen to this show know I've had leftists on this show. I am a leftist. I've had conservatives on this show. And we've debated, we've had discussion. And I would say, for the most part, I think everyone would say I'm pretty fair, even the conservatives. So I'm going to start off this episode by reading these tweets from Gab. Let's start here. Hi, Matt. Gab is well, first I said, I introduced you and I said, Michael Edison Hayden will join the show to discuss what the hell is going on with white supremacists' favorite social network, Gab. So their response is, hi, Matt. Gab is a free speech website that exists to extend U.S. standard civil liberties protections to marginalized people all over the planet, including journalists, members of religious minorities, LGBTQ plus persons, and politically exposed activists. The tweets continue. As President Obama put it, the strongest weapon against hateful speech is not repression, it is more speech. Right. I got to read the whole thing, though. Today, Netflix pulls comedy shows that offend Saudi princes. Twitter removes content of Pakistani human rights activists. Patreon kicks off conservatives. We don't. And in a third follow-up tweet, protecting speech for anyone means protecting speech for everyone. We'd be very happy to have you join the site and spread your message too. Now, let me just say from my end here, sure, I will join Gab if that's what they want me to do so I can see the site for myself. I've actually been on the site before, but you, Michael, and the reason I've had you on is because you've been on the site for a lot. You've been on the site a lot.
Yes, so, I have.
So tell me, and I'll let you talk now, and I won't say a word. I've talked enough already.
Yeah.
How accurate is that tweet thread?
Well, I'll just focus on one aspect of it, which is the journalist aspect of it. Torba, the CEO of Gab, Andrew Torba, he has he really does not like journalists very much, and right after the Tree of Life shooting, well, I should call it a domestic terror attack because that's what it is. Gab had, I think, had kind of faded in the background. It was a fascination for a brief while because it was like, okay, there's this site that people are, where a lot of alt-right personalities are flocking to and whatever. And then people got quite bored with it. Even people in the alt-right movement and many neo-Nazis got bored with the site. Then all of a sudden, it had this spotlight shining on it because of this domestic terror attack. And all the reporters that covered that, from Washington Post to Daily Beast and whatever other sites, Torba really tried to drag every one of those people on Twitter. He suspended my account from Gab, under completely, fatuous, silly. I don't know. I don't even exactly know what he was, what violation I had commit, but he did that, and then on the basic level, speaking only about what, from the point of view of Gab users who believed in the mission of the site, Torba has like a kind of a group of fans, or kind of a cult fan base on the site, a small one that will go along with almost anything that he does, seemingly. But a lot of people who join the site, people on the far right who joined the site believing that this was going to be a safe space to say anything and do anything, have become very, very disappointed with Gab. A lot of people who were critical of Torba on the site have been banned from it. Now, the question is safe for LGBT, the gay population. I have a hard time saying that when I'm on a live stream.
That's all good.
The gay population, people of color, et cetera, like that. I mean, it is not that. I mean, I think
mispronouncing the acronym is probably the least problematic thing when we're talking Gab and the LGBTQ plus community, really. Yes.
But I would say, I would say, culturally, I grew up in a very, culturally white household. My mother is Egyptian. My father is white. I never felt, particularly ethnic until I joined Gab, when people started to really analyze my DNA. And so
what you're saying is, join Gab if you want a free ancestry.com.
Yeah, if you want people trying to measure your skull and everything else, join Gab.
Right. Why pay for 23andMe when you can get the alt medicine version of that from Gab.com?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be clear. Not every user of that website is a white supremacist. However, because they, Torba created an environment in which organized racism could flourish, neo-Nazis could organize out in the open, use the chat rooms, use the group functions and stuff like that. They're just there. They're just on the website. And you could say, oh, they're on Twitter too, which is, of course, true. Right. But, Gab doesn't have LeBron James. It is a very small website. And we're finding out, in terms of how many active users actually are, it's very, very small, in fact.
Right.
And
when you have hundreds of millions of people, on your website, there's going to be groups of people who are certainly problematic, without a doubt. Now, when you have the entirety of those problematic people just on your website, then you have to ask yourself, what am I doing wrong?
Sure. And
if you think you're doing something wrong, and I question whether that's the case.
Sure. I just want to make one thing clear, which is that the idea of some kind of speech, a free speech website, something like that, sounds nice to the ear of the type of person who might be attracted to Gab, but many of them have been disappointed with the product. Because if they attack Torba, not all of them, but many of them, if they attack Torba, they get banned from the website. You go in his comments and he'll ban you from it. It's almost, it's happened to at least 10 or 15 people in the last few months.
Right. And, I didn't want to get this far into it off the top, but I had to read those tweets. So I just want to step back a little bit and just go into exactly who is the founder of Gab, this Andrew Torba fellow, and what, I'm sure people could get from it now, but why did he exactly start Gab.com? Where did it come from?
Well, I mean, I guess you'd have to ask him that, but
Right.
where it came from. But I
And
mean,
Torba, if you're listening to this show,
yeah.
feel free to reach out to me. I'm being
Also,
serious.
I've reached out to him for comments several times, and he's never responded. So he can respond to me directly. The impetus for starting the website was, and I'll take this in a good faith way, tech companies were, clamping down on popular users on websites like Twitter and Facebook during the 2016 election for saying inappropriate things on those websites. I mean, one example that comes to mind is Milo Yiannopoulos, who was, with the whole Leslie Jones affair, for people who are not familiar, instigated a harassment campaign against her. Milo was a big player on Twitter, had a big following. There has to be some kind of way that we can make money off of these big volume user people and put them somewhere else, a safe place for them to go. So, I mean, the idea was this is a place where you can go and you can safely cry your love for Donald Trump and your dislike of soy boys and whatever else, and that's going to be this. What I don't think they planned for is the degree to which many of the people who are not e-celebrities who were banned from social media were outright dangerous people. And if they were not dangerous people, they were, they were people like Andrew Anglin of Daily Stormer, who is a neo-Nazi and lives to write and say things that provoke, a really, I don't know how to put it. He's responsible for troll storms and things like that.
Right. He antagonizes his people he doesn't like. Sure. He organizes, people on problematic places on the internet, 4chan, 8chan, etc., to sort of, go after people like organize targeted harassment campaigns. I know exactly what you're saying. It's sort of like, if your new website is bringing all these people to one place, then if that's not what you meant to do, then you realize right away who's on the site, and you do things to make changes to make sure that not only those people are coming to your site.
Well, one thing that's interesting is that Anglin and Andrew Ornheimer, both of Daily Stormer, they posted a lot on the site, and they brought their community with them right away. Milo got bored with it very quickly, and many of the e-celebs that Torba had tried to court early on, people like Mike Cernovich has told me that he found Gab extremely repulsive immediately, just because of the degree of the hate speech. And you're talking about a guy who is already so many people want him banned from Twitter for the stuff that he's done, Pizzagate and things like that. And he couldn't stomach it, in part because neo-Nazis, white supremacists, they brought their people to play, and the e-celebs posted once or twice and abandoned the site. This is still the problem with Gab today. I mean, one of the biggest coups that Gab got in recent months was Laura Loomer, after she was banned, she's needed a home because she's got a post and stuff. And, she signed up for Gab and was posting, immediately blasted with anti-Semitic harassment and stuff like that. I mean, just typical Gab stuff. And, she's really MIA, hasn't posted in 3 weeks. And Coulter made Gab kind of like a cause briefly, because it's oh, they're all coming down on Gab and stuff like that. And so she's like, I'm going to sign up for Gab and post on here. She posted for a few days and has not posted in 2 months. And people who pay close attention to the website know that. They're aware of that, because every time one of these e-celebs comes in, it is a big story inside that community. It's a very small and tight-knit community. And when these people come, and then they know when they give up and just they're like, okay, no one's here, or there's they're getting blasted with swastikas and oven memes and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, to be fair to Laura Loomer, she might be a little bit busy, jumping over Nancy Pelosi's walls,
yes,
and doing all sorts of handcuffing herself to Twitter.
I saw her like I saw it like, that's because I'm working on another feature that's unrelated to this now, and it's just been like, it's giving me pink eye in my like right eye or whatever. I'm like sick and whatever else from working on this story. And like someone sent me a picture of Laura Loomer wearing like dressed in like a Mexican, some kind of Mexican costume, and I was like, I'm not even gonna take the time to find out what this is. I'm not gonna let seconds drip out of my life trying to figure out what it is.
Right. I got to
think Instagram though, and when she gets banned from Instagram, I have a feeling she's not going to go back to Gab because it's a really difficult place to sink in. I mean, I think these people tend to do better on Minds.com, which is like a kind of a different strange site. But we'll get to that later.
Right. It is something there that even people like Cernovich and Laura Loomer go on this site. Really horrible people. And they're turned away. Like that's how far the people on the site are in terms of their extremist positions. And listen, you want a site that's free speech, and you want to let this all run wild. You want to let the wild west of this stuff go. That's to me. I mean, I see the problems in it, and I see why you'd want that. Fine, if you're running this website and you want that to happen, then cool, fine. But then really question, where's the other side here? Why aren't there where's the far left? Where's the progressives? Where's liberals? Where's centrists? Where's moderates? Where's Republicans? Where's your basic generic conservatives? Why are these people? Where's the non-political people?
Well, I would say that there are some conservatives on Gab for sure. Like there are some kind of like, I don't know, like constitutional grandma accounts type things. There are a few of them, but they're
like the libertarians that are for liberty, but don't also want to say that the Civil Rights Act was a bad idea. I mean,
the defining culture of that website from the very beginning when it started were alt-right posters, and now those very same people are on the website directly in Torba's mentions, accusing him of running an affinity scam, which is, when you take a group of people and you prey on their tendencies towards the community in order to turn a profit. They're very frustrated, those people. And I don't think he has, the commitment from conservatives is enough, financially. I mean, Gab is losing a lot of money, first of all. That's the first thing, which we elaborated on in that story quite a bit. I don't know if we want to touch on those specifics, but
let's get into that in 1 second. Actually, I just have to point this out. We have a bit of a YouTube celebrity watching us in the chat over here. Good old Sticks Hexenhammer 666.
I had to block this guy the other day only because his followers are really annoying. I have no issue with his posts, Jamie. It's just like more like I was just like, I don't want to deal with like.
Right. But, well, I just want to say hi to Sticks, and I want to welcome him to the show. Welcome to Doomed. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. For anyone who isn't aware of Sticks, you've probably seen various memes of him where users have screenshotted him shirtless, wearing a leather jacket. Yeah. Very, very cool. But that aside, though, listen, Sticks. While I have your attention, I'd be happy for you to come on this show anytime. I'd go on your show anytime if you'd like. And I'm all for free speech. I really am. But
I don't think I've ever been on YouTube before, and I realized that this is not home turf for me. So hello to Sticks' people. Actually, he's kind of a hole in my knowledge. I actually really have not dug into what his whole deal and stuff. But I know that there have been some things where he was questioning the existence of the Holocaust or whatever. Yeah, he should tell me about that sometime. I'd like to know.
Right, yeah. I'm all for, conservatives love to talk about the exchange of free ideas, the marketplace of free ideas, but for some reason people like Dave Rubin never seem to have anyone but conservatives and right-wingers on his show. So, I have conservatives on this show. Any one of these Gab celebrities watching right now, Sticks included, I'd be happy to speak with you guys on this show, or I'd go on your show. So, but let's get back to Gab here. I just had to have that addendum. Rarely do you get the opportunity to be, to have that connection to greatness here. So let's get back to Gab. So let's go into these stories that you recently covered here. Number one, let's get to epic domains. Sure. And the interesting thing here is, if I was to write over-the-top movie script about some sort of evil company that was giving some sort of evil website that was harboring extremists, a place to congregate, if I named this guy Monster, I think Hollywood would look at this script and say, get out of my office, get the fuck out of here. No, this is too on the nose. But apparently the guy who runs this Epic Domains company, his real name is Robert Monster.
Yes, it is. Yes. When I called him, he was like, your reputation precedes you. When I called him, which was I thought it was a really cool intro to a conversation. So Monster did a thing that other sites did not want to do, which is register the domain of Gab after the Tree of Life shooting. And he himself, after doing that, kind of rebranded his own company around free speech. You can go to archives like Internet Archive .org, whatever, and you can see his Twitter handle from before he picked up Gab and before the Tree of Life shooting, and it had this very I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was domains for blah 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 whatever, and he himself is now in his bio or whatever is now rebranded his whole company around free speech after that shooting. He's picked up the business of BitChute, which is also a in the same way that Gab is a kind of a little brother or whatever to Twitter, very little brother. BitChute is trying to do that with YouTube, under the idea that, YouTube is censoring all these people and whatever. And I'd like to point out that white supremacists like Mike Enoch, Mike Penovich is his real name, and Joseph Jordan, who goes by Eric Stryker, they're on YouTube. They're on Twitter, right? I mean, they're on there. Actually, Stryker's on Gab. Right. At least using his stage name. But the point is, he's all over YouTube. And these are like, dyed-in-the-wool anti-Semites who spend their entire life grousing about Jewish people and and spreading hatred about minorities, and they're on those websites. So what ultimately happens when you put this narrative that, like, okay, these companies are censoring this, whatever, we're going to create an alternative, the things that are really being banned from YouTube and Twitter, in the case of BitChute, they've got things like, extraordinarily racist propaganda and really violent stuff, like songs about cannibalizing black children and really just awful stuff that you can find on BitChute. Monster is picking up their business. I think he's also got Radio Aryan, which is or Aryan Radio, whatever it is, which is a white supremacist podcast network. So he's now collecting quite a few of them. And there are other businesses too. There's Sybil Systems, which is we can do that later. You want to keep going?
No, keep going. Keep going. I was going to say something, but keep going.
Yeah, there's Sybil System, which is they are hosting. Yeah, they're providing the basic infrastructure for that website, because social networks, even very 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 small ones like Gab, have a lot of data to share. I mean, you got posts from like 2 years ago and et cetera, et cetera. Sybil System is providing that infrastructure to them, and they're kind of a mysterious company that claims to be based out of the UK. We're kind of looking into them a little bit further right now. Then there's a company called Second Amendment Processing, which recently, picked up the business of Gab's payment processing after PayPal dropped them, after Stripe dropped them. Stripe does business with Penovich and, white supremacists like that. And the fact that they dropped Gab is sending a message. But something called Second Amendment processing has also got Gab's business. A guy named Thomas Troyer, he's like a 39-year-old man from Michigan. We are looking a little bit into his background too. I think he's kind of an interesting figure. And he is the person who's giving them payment processing right now. Then there's Start Engine, which is the most superficially legitimate or mainstream company, and they're the ones who are helping Gab provide, handle their work with the SEC in order to try to get their stocks sold.
Now, before we get into that, though, so what exactly what exactly has happened with Gab that has forced them to use these sorts of companies? Like from what I understand,
sure. I like my brain is like filled with too much information. Sometimes I can't remember all the companies that dropped.
Well, we have. I'm pretty sure we have
processing. GoDaddy.
Let's start with GoDaddy.
They dropped. The point is that quite a few different companies gave them the boot after people were justifiably shocked. By what they saw. It's like, Gab is operating in the darkness for, like I said, for a very long time. And then all of a sudden, this domestic terror attack happens, and all of a sudden people shine a spotlight on it. Jake Tapper is talking about it on CNN, and people look inside the website and like, dear God, what is this? What is this place? And then, obviously, on that, it's not even, the narrative is always like, journalist pressure and these pressure. I mean, these companies, once you see what's going on, they obviously don't want anything to do with this material, and they just dropped it. And Gab had to go offline for a full week. I believe, if my dates are correct, it was they went off that Sunday night. The shooting was October 27th, I believe, and then I think it was on the night of Sunday, November 4th. So 1 week exactly, they returned, and it was filled with more glitches and more problems inside technically than usual because Gab was trying to get off the ground with these new companies.
Let's go back to that time actually, and let's talk a little bit more about that shooting. How active was the shooter of this? Where was this again? The synagogue shooting?
Pittsburgh.
So how active was this shooter? This really domestic terrorist? How active was he on Gab?
Well, I'll just give you for your listeners and for Styx and everybody else, some background about my own usage of Gab. I actually, did not cover the far right. I was covering India for 5 years, and then I was covering crime for Vice and a lot of breaking news, including the campaign for ABC News. And I picked up this beat directly after Charlottesville, and like many Americans, I was paying attention to the far right, and I was just very upset. I was very emotional. I knew a lot of people like Heather, and I knew people who were down there, and I was just like, well, whatever this is, it can't continue. So I needed to make contacts fast. I needed to get into the movement, into the movement in one way, and I had come across a story about Weave getting suspended from Gab for making comments that someone, this is not literal, but he uses words carefully, but basically that someone could teach Jewish people a lesson by doing a Timothy McVeigh style attack on Jewish people.
Right.
And Gab received pressure after that comment was made, and I can't remember who was deplatforming them, maybe app stores or whatever. And they reacted by suspending Weave. And I wrote about that story. And to write about that story, I signed up for it under my own name. And like I said, in a desire to immerse myself in this world, I looked around that site and I'm like, well, there's a lot of them here. Maybe I should just start talking to people. So I would just start posting on it. Like at one point I had posted, far more times. I think if you look at my Twitter, I think I've posted maybe 6,000 times since 2012, which sounds terrible to me in my ear, but I had posted 7,000 times on Gab from September 20th, 2017 to when I was suspended from the site by Torba after Tree of Life. And I used to keep Gab open, in a browser tab basically all day while I was working, having conversations with people. And, I got used to taking a certain level of abuse from people and things like that, to the point where it's just like, you just kind of get numb about it. Like, like you're usually like you're, Jorge Posada, when he used to play baseball, he's like, he had blisters all over his hand, didn't need batting gloves anymore. Gab was really good training for me because I learned to be able to communicate with them, to banter with people and things like that, and to be able to speak. And I did not miss a thing on that website. So the question was, One Dingo, what was he like? One Dingo is Robert Bowers. And I actually, at points, Robert Bowers appeared in my mentions at different times during that period. That was a very long intro to that subject. Sorry about that. And, I watched in real time in July of 2018 when Bowers was interacting with Brad Griffin of League of the South, who's a white nationalist who was very active at Charlottesville during the Unite the Right rally, and a user named Jack Corbin is what he goes by, Pale Horse. His real name, according to other reporting, is Daniel McMahon. And they were organizing against an anti-racist blogger, and trying to dig up information about him, trying to dig about information about his family on Gab. Gab supposedly has a no doxing policy, but that didn't really apply to leftists. It also didn't apply to journalists when I was on the site, many of whom were doxed and had the doxes up for a very long time, including A.C. Thompson of ProPublica, whose dox was up for a very long time on that website.
Right. This is sort of the thing that in the feed here you have someone saying how Elliot Rogers uploaded a video to YouTube. Elliot Rogers, of course, was the guy who is basically an incel hero now because he put out this manifesto where he blamed women for not liking him. He was like a college student, and he went out and shot up a few women and men who he perceived as being good with women. No. And so the person's basically saying that Elliot Rogers uploaded a video to YouTube, thus that makes YouTube a hate site too. It's a Gab user or Gab fan trying to make the false equivalency here. But what you just brought up though is sort of the thing though. Like if Gab, if YouTube, if someone puts that up on YouTube, YouTube will inevitably receive warnings from users on the site saying, hey, I came across this video, you should take a look at it, something's not right here, something's wrong here, this breaks your policies, etc., 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 something's there. Now on Gab, you just said to me that people's information was up for hours and hours at a time and almost flourished here, and that's sort of because you got to assume that at the very least, if you want to claim that Gab would have done something about it, let's just give Torba the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe he didn't know about it because the users weren't reporting it because they enjoy that stuff. There's nothing wrong with it to them. It's what they want on the site. That's what the site's there for to them.
Sure. Well, I mean, to that I would say Gab is very different, different from YouTube. And I am by no means giving YouTube a pass or Twitter or any of those sites. We're just talking about Gab right now. Specifically Gab.
Right.
And I'll tell you, not only was there doxing, but I mean, I received, I believe it was in July, someone shared a picture of extremely graphic photograph of Berg, the talk radio host, who was murdered by the Order, a neo-Nazi group. His skull blown apart, literally in the photograph, blood trickling down the driveway. And he's like, this is not a game, like whatever else. I can't remember the exact phrasing. Something, use a hashtag, make journalists afraid again. And I was like, okay, this one's not as nice a message. And I brought that up to Torba, not once, not twice, but 3 times. I brought that particular post to Torba's attention. He never responded to it. I have receipts for those, for those attempts to correspond with Gab support. I had tried to correspond with him in his DMs at one point. He screenshot the DMs and then, tried to, in an effort to drag me, put it onto, post it onto Gab and fed it to people like Christopher Cantwell. That's all good. I'm still standing, as they say. The point is that this particular culture was one where on that website that was nasty on a level that no website I know of, other than like perhaps free-for-all websites like 8chan, had created. I mean, there was just no environment quite like Gab where you could get someone saying we're going to blow your head off, and you go to the company 3 times and say, hey, this one looks like it violates your terms of service 3 times, and get absolutely no response. And actually, that post was up until after, I think. I don't remember whether it was after or if it was up until the very moment that Bowers murdered 11 Jewish people in a synagogue.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, this is pretty serious stuff. I mean, Torba knows that some of his users are dangerous because he himself has concerns about them. I know that from conversations I've had with people who know him. I mean, he knows that his users are a threat, and they're a potential threat to him as well. I mean, they're a threat to everybody. Some of them, they're people like Robert Bowers. He was willing to die in order to murder 11 Jews in a domestic terrorist attack. These are not people who are easy to contain, and it requires a tremendous amount of courage to, if you're building a business, to stand up to those users and say, like, look, we're not going to allow this particular thing and put rules. That was not done on Gab. Right.
Now, let's talk about, because let's actually get into what's going on with Gab now. Sure. With what happened yesterday. Now you brought up briefly the crowdfunding that they received. So I guess we should go a little bit into that first before we get into literally yesterday. So who is this Silicon Valley group that's basically really, the funny thing is, I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, but all I could think of, when I keep seeing that Gab is about to be down for the count, but then somehow rises back to the occasion, but barely though. It's not like they come back with like a phoenix each time. They come back barely hanging on by a thread each and every time. And
I will interject and quote Faith No More to keep coming back smaller and smaller and smaller. Any metal fans in there? I don't know if Styx listens to Faith No More.
Right.
Well, I know what you think of them, Styx.
Well, for me, I was thinking of the famous Shawn Michaels promo back in the 90s when the entire Hart family had left the WWE. Storyline-wise, they had DX beat them, Bret Hart, Davey Boy Smith, British Bulldog, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and all that was left in the WWE at the time was Owen Hart. Yeah. And Shawn Michaels cuts this promo about how the Hart family is just this big, giant turd that DX just flushed.
Yeah.
But Owen Hart is that nugget that just won't go down the toilet. And I just kept thinking of, and honestly, when I thought of that, I pictured Torba doing the whole Owen Hart thing where he came out going like, "I am not a nugget." I don't know if you were a wrestling fan then.
No, I wasn't like that deep into it. I'll be perfectly honest. But I do appreciate it. I have a cultural appreciation for the type of,
because usually you respect like the whole, he keeps getting back up for more, But
you know what wrestler I really like is Doink. Remember that guy?
Doink, yeah, there you go.
Doink and Dink. Dink was like the little version of Doink. Anyway, continue.
Right. No, I know exactly who you're talking about, and Doink actually was better as a heel than a face. But and the whole thing was that DX is cool, and they're the new thing. They're what's everyone was basically associating themselves with, because that was the way things were going in that era. And Owen Hart, who is a great wrestler and a great human being but his gimmick was that he was this annoying little guy who just wouldn't go away to them. And, it's sort of, it isn't that sort of heroic comeback story for Gab each time. It is this really sad, like, oh man, this poor guy is holding on to this terrible website. I looked into Torba's history a little bit. We didn't really get a chance to go into it, but, he seems like he was just like your basic, like, wannabe Silicon Valley, coming up. He was in a Y Combinator funded company.
Yes, I've spoken to people from there.
Right.
Had conversations with people who sat with him.
He had sold the company. I'm not sure for how much. It wasn't like this big successful, acquisition, but still we're talking, a tech company. So I'm sure he came away with a decent chunk of change, probably where he really had the money to start Gab in the first place. And, this guy decided to go a route that really has only ruined him, I think. There's no coming back from this in the mainstream tech. Like, sure, you have your Rob Monsters and your this other crowdfunding company we're about to talk about who'll have your back. But once they realize that, maybe Rob Monster will stick into it, but the crowdfunding guys who are actually putting their money and reputation on the line here, they who knows how long they'll stick around for it.
Should give them, a pass. I mean, Start Engine LA was what we're talking about here, and they signed a contract for $200,000 with Gab after the Tree of Life domestic terror attack, which is, extremely problematic in my opinion. I'll leave it up to personal opinion. Yeah, no, I mean, for them, it's basically a financial thing.
That's what I'm saying, though. I'm not even saying for them specifically. It's about what Gab would do to who they are and how they feel. What I'm saying is, and you're going to get into this more because you wrote about it. Gab is not being totally truthful about how successful Torba, I should say, is not being totally truthful about how successful Gab is.
Well, I'll tell you what it says without any opinions. I'll tell you what we can report.
Tell me what we can report here. Allegedly, right? Allegedly, Gab is not.
So as I said, I know Gab inside and out. I spent as much time, I think, probably as anyone but Torba on that website from September 20th, 2017 until today. I have that site open all the time. I know it, and I have watched Andrew make boasts about the number of users on that website. And instinctively, it has always felt, I'll just say, like this cannot be real. This cannot be a real thing. I'm looking at this website and I'm looking at people dropping out of the website and leaving the website and stopping to post and things like that. And I'm watching people dealing with all these technical glitches. I mean, the site is actually quite a mess inside, just in terms of from a practical use. I mean, the search bar doesn't work and quite a few other things. I think my friend Kelly Will did mention that in her story, which cited our reporting on the SEC stuff. What I was to say was the user numbers have jumped in ways that always struck me as being just impossible. Just a personal opinion. The data, however, was never really available. You were always kind of going by what Torba would say, and he would say like, 600,000 users on the site, 700,000, 800,000. And he said he put in the SEC filing, we have, I believe the language is, and I'm going 100%, 835,000 persons on the site. I believe that was the language he used.
I definitely saw. I think to be safe, we can say over 800,000 users are on the site. Yes.
Yeah.
I read that too. Yep.
Yeah, I don't remember as persons or users actually on the SEC filing. And what's interesting is that a lot of a lot of social networks have kind of inflated totals of users with empty accounts and bots and things like that, and that's always been a thing. But Snapchat and Facebook and Twitter, they do report active users, and those are people who log into the website and actually post things. And in the case of Gab, what you have is, according to Storyful, who I reached out, I used to work there, but I knew that they had the capacity to actually break this down because I was aware of their ability. They have like really superb, over in Dublin, superb skills at like scraping these fringe websites and pulling numbers together on them. And the numbers that they had, estimates they'd give me was always, it's more like tens of thousands. And this was guys, I said, can you give me an actual number? And so from 1 week in the middle of January, what they found is that under 20,000 people in that week, not people, accounts, logged into the site and posted something. Now, something could be a picture or whatever. There are some people who accuse Torba of creating hello bots. I mean, I don't know what that is, and I don't know if that's a real thing or not. What I do know is that under 20, like if it is indeed under 20,000, and he's telling the SEC, like, well, we got over 800,000. He's telling his investors now that he has over 850,000. So he's growing. That is not something I would do if I were running a business. That's the way I will phrase it on the podcast. That is not something I would do. There are potential legal concerns here. SEC filings are no joke. They are like this is quite serious business. And if I were an investor in this website, one of the people, I mean, these are very speculative securities they're buying. I would be pretty unnerved by that total, and I would be asking around for people to start putting together the kind of numbers that Storyful put together for me. Get a few more. There are some people on Gab who claim to have numbers that are lower than that and whatever. I actually don't know. I do know that the Storyful number felt much closer to the truth than what I've seen from Torba over the years. I just don't feel like there's having posted on the site and searched around it day in, day out. It just didn't feel like that to me. And those numbers feel that estimate we got feels much closer to the truth. And I also know it's based on data that I can see and so whatever.
It's a hell of a difference, by the way.
Now you had misspoke in the intro and said that now it's a for pay service. That's actually not true. What Gab is now is invite only.
But wasn't there a subscription? I might have got that confused.
They've always had a subscription, and that has been like they don't have ads. I don't know what the ads would be, but I'm trying to imagine what an ad on Gab would look like. But the thing has always been like we'll sell you these features, and if you buy these features, that's what's going to keep the site financially stable. And now the people who have a Gab Pro account are the only people who can invite users onto the site. So now you are. So
it is sort of in a way. I know. It wasn't 100% accurate, but it is sort of behind a paywall now, because if you don't know anyone who has these paid features, then you're sort of forced to pay to get onto the site.
Well, what it is statement to your investors and to whatever that this site is just not going to grow, because once you have, how is it going to grow? I mean, every day he's like giving away one code to get onto the website. I mean, this is not how, in my mind, how a website would grow. It seems like the statement that you're making is like, this is what we got, what's in here, and recent things like the bot attacks. That he was claiming that's the reason why the site keeps crashing is bot attacks. I don't actually know if that's the case or not. But it's a very easy way that if he does get in trouble with the SEC, he can point to say, oh, we had all these bots attack the site. That's why I thought there were so many users. And when the site's not growing, now you can say, well, we because of the bot attacks, now we have this thing where we have a code we're giving out, and that's the reason why it's not growing. These are things he could do in theory if he gets in trouble. I don't know if it'll work or not, though. And the behavior strikes me as being quite stunning. Like if you are putting forth a good faith effort to make a successful company that earns money and people can buy shares of and things like that, it's highly unusual. Well, it just strikes me as being highly unusual for a business.
I will say, as someone who covers tech, that a company would usually do this, to put across this idea that those on the website are VIP. They're,
Right.
you know, to be a member of a site that's closed like that, where you need to be invited or need a special code, that means everyone on the site already are people who aren't on the site really want to get on that site to interact with.
Right.
You sort of fake some sort of, it's like when you see, a nightclub in New York City with a line around the block, and then you get in and you realize this place isn't packed. It's because they want to create the illusion that
Yes.
there's some sort of special thing going on in this building that not everyone could get into.
Right.
Now, for a lot of companies, this sort of thing works when there is an influx of users who want to get onto this site because they hear there are some influencers or important people already in there. Or it works because it just has an interesting sort of angle to it, and people are like, I want to check this site out. But what's happened?
But Gab has been around for 2.5 years already.
Right. And also, they know who's coming to Gab. It's not like
I believe in the early goings of it already had a kind of an invite type of thing. It may have.
Yeah,
I don't remember. I wasn't on it in August of 2016 when it started.
Right. It wouldn't be shocking, but the idea that they do that now, and it's not a way to sort of bring in a new audience. That's not how you change things up so you could become more digestible to a mainstream audience. If you know who these people who are going to be invited onto the site are going to be, like, it's not fixing whatever the problem, whatever the real problems of Gab are, which is the horrible people that seem to use this website that are making life for Torba horrible to run this at a mainstream level. Mainstream companies want nothing to do with it. This whole invite thing is actually not a way to stop these people from coming. It's actually a way to foster it and make sure that if there was anyone who was on this site who weren't already part of these groups, they're probably going to be gone.
Right. Well, I think one thing that is, important to mention is that the Gab's brand is now so irrevocably linked to this domestic terror attack that it makes it it's going to make it very difficult to flip it into something else. Just in general.
Right.
And who they're going to invite all kinds of good people and be like, oh yeah, let me check this out. I mean, it's known for basically one thing. I mean, I happen to. If I didn't believe that Gab were dangerous because of the degree to which it serves to have people with ambitions of domestic terror organizing, I almost enjoy the website sometimes in a kind of like the way I enjoy the movie Troll 2 or The Room. And it's just that it's like anything that can go wrong will go wrong in Gab, like the 404 messages. I like websites that. I like things that are kind of like, don't function particularly well. And sometimes it's amusing to interact with people on the website when all hell is breaking loose on it and, pictures aren't loading and stuff like that, and watch everybody get mad. It entertains me in some kind of weird way.
The funny thing, I'm glad you brought that up because
yeah.
I'm actually personally, in a very personal sense, and as I see, random messages pop up in the chat right now, a lot of people confuse when I talk about this stuff. Me personally, a little piece of me dies every time one of these right-wingers got banned from Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or whatever, because I personally love this shit. I live for seeing these dunces spew what they spew. And I love just screenshotting it or grabbing excerpts of it and just having a good laugh. I report on this stuff the way I do because it's important to see the people who are really hurt by it, marginalized groups who really are in danger and how this affects them. I mean, I could report on that and get it and say, I agree this stuff shouldn't be on there. Well, personally, on the inside, a little part of me does enjoy that type of stuff. The not harmful stuff, I should say. Obviously, if someone's obviously advocating for literal mass murder with plans to go out and do something, there's no place for that shit. But, someone talking trash and, saying something dumb that's, some far alt-right, trope or some shit, hell,
I would just say, I understand the spirit of what you're saying. I was just saying on a personal level, because I get, I get accused like, oh, he's an activist, he wants whatever. Look, I will tell you just very clearly, like what I believe in, when I report, I, have no problem being critical of white supremacists and white nationalists, Nazis. I have no problem with that. On a mission, the goal is to push them as far away from the mainstream as possible. And in that sense, I don't think that certain people, the like nasty trolls in your mentions are one thing, but like, white nationalists that may not be terrorists, I don't want them on Twitter. I've let them keep running down handles and like, until they keep re-scrambling their names and coming back. I want them off.
Right. I mean, I
don't want them spreading their propaganda. I don't want to see them. I don't want to see their face. I want them to have as difficult a time to communicate with people as possible, because in that sense, them being on Gab is better, because I'd rather have them on Gab than I would on Twitter, because very few people on Gab that can't reach anyone.
Right. I mean, personally, I miss and I'm joking here, but I miss pre-terrible. He was always terrible, but pre-dangerous Alex Jones. Like alien conspiracies, Illuminati stuff. When we could just turn on Alex Jones and laugh, and he was just your, normal everyday conspiracy theorist. Why he had to go down this route, it's sad for me. I enjoyed clipping that ridiculous stuff he would say. Why he had to harass, send his followers out to harass Sandy Hook families by reporting terrible shit. It's horrible. And, Alex Jones is a guy who personally I actually think didn't have to do that shit. He is way more, he actually has some broadcast talent. Too bad he felt he had to do that shit. But fuck him. He wants to do that shit. Screw him, That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a comment specifically on Jones, other than, obviously I found the Newtown stuff like just absolutely horrible. What I would say about Jones is it's interesting, because he's one of the e-celebs who went to Gab, and you almost feel like he's not on it because he doesn't interact. He's not a live person, and it feels very much like some InfoWars intern is just like, just upload it to Gab, and it doesn't have that personal feeling, and that is one thing that is really, I think, hurt that website, is just the number of people are just not interacting. I mean, the people who are e-celebs who interact are not people who anyone cares about. Like, I mean, nobody really pays attention to crying Nazi Christopher Cantwell, but he's like one of the loudest voices on that website. I mean, he is. Because he actually interacts with people, he actually posts his thoughts and things. I mean, and then from there it gets just much smaller. I mean, it's really like.
Now, didn't I'm sorry, this just came to my mind. Yeah. Didn't a Gab employee, like a high level Gab employee, there's probably a total of 5 people who ever worked for Gab, but a high level Gab employee, big time CFO or some sort of high executive level position, was actually harassed so bad that he quit working for the company. Well,
I mean, I can't comment on exactly what happened there.
Allegedly.
I have, there are things that I have heard about his exit. You're talking about Otsov Sanduja. What I can say is that before he left, he and his wife, who is Jewish, were subject to just insane levels of abuse. There was, I mean, somebody who ran like a meme competition about like how, different ways to dismember the wife or something like that. I can produce the exact screenshot for you later. But it was something related to violence, and picture how we can do this. And there was an entire page, a section, I don't like to use slurs or whatever, but it's called Street Shitter 420, and Street Shitter because he's Indian. My wife is Indian, and my mother's Arab, so I'm familiar with the brown people slurs, but it's called Street Shitter 420. And it was like primarily when it was first started focused on just creating memes to torment Sanduja. And it just happened. Like, it was accompanying the thing, and it was just allowed to go on. I would say that hashtag, just to in case anybody who posts under that hashtag has redirected their attention to going after Torba after that. And has been doing it so aggressively for 7 months, I almost sometimes have to respect it, even though they are extremely vulgar, racist, and anti-Semites. It's almost like a little weird kind of cancerous troll farm inside of Gab, taking it down from the inside. It's very bizarre culture.
Now, not that anyone deserves that type of stuff for any reason, but sure. Was there some sort of reason that Gab's user base felt the need to go after this guy?
They just didn't like him. I mean,
like
he's Indian. I mean,
he's one of the guys involved he's one of the guys involved with making sure that their favorite website is up and running.
Yeah, but the thing is, people who are on Gab, again, there are a cross section of people that kind of like post, we love it, we love you under like Andrew Torba's posts on the site, and then there are everyone who is not posting on that, it feels like sometimes, is dissatisfied and can't stand it. And, it's kind of like, this food is terrible in such small portions too. Why are you still using it, right? Why are you still using this website and you hate it? But I think there's also the degree to which the degree to which they don't have, if you are strongly against big tech and you are looking for an alternative, they don't know what it is. They're just mad that this isn't it. And there are other alternatives. Like I said, Minds is one of them, and the other one is some website that I haven't really got into yet called freespeechextremist.com. just absolutely dope name, like slightly irony poisoned there, but what a great name.
I feel like you need some sort of
chainsaws coming out of your mouth,
and like some sort of guitar pick slide, and someone.
If you're on freespeechextremist.com, it's just like can you post pictures of your cat and stuff? I mean, I don't know what do you do? Just have to be extreme.
They need to hire. They need to hire like a voiceover actor off like Fiverr to create like their promo video, and each time the website's name is said, he has to go like "Free Speech Extremist" or something like that.
Yeah, but the thing is, there is a real hunger for people to find an alternative to these companies. And then, there's also that one that a lot of leftists use, and I've been invited to a few times, and I just can't get into it, which is it's the name of a metal band, Mastodon. Is that what it's called?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I just can't I'm already on Twitter. It's too much for me. I hate being on it. Don't make me go on another thing. But there is a hunger to get away from these things because they farm your data, and we know. I recently deactivated Facebook, and these websites are problematic. So these people have a hunger for it, particularly in the kind of libertarian alt-right crossover community there. They wanted something like that, and they're on the site and just pissed off it's not working.
Right. And I just this week I've been reporting on what's been going on between Facebook, Google, and Apple. And for those who aren't aware,
it can be extremely, it's extremely disconcerting sometimes.
Right. And for those who aren't aware, Facebook and Google were basically found by TechCrunch discovered that Facebook and Google both were basically going around Apple's policies, and they had set up these VPN apps via Apple's Enterprise Developer Program, which is basically Apple's program so corporations and organizations can set up internal company use iOS apps that's only meant for internal company use, not meant to be distributed on the App Store. And that way companies can do things that Apple doesn't want to be done for mass audiences or for users via their App Store. And what Google and Facebook were doing were they were basically setting up these programs where they were paying users to opt in to these programs where they could download these apps, get paid like $20 to use them, and whether they really realized how much they were giving Facebook and Google is another question entirely. Some of these users, by the way, were as young as 13 years old. Basically, these VPN apps were taking all this data about how these Google and Facebook VPN app users were using their mobile phones, everything they were doing on their mobile phone and sending it to Google and Facebook. Now, Apple finds out about this through this investigative report, and Apple basically says, you're not supposed to do this, and shuts down their certificates and basically breaks all their internal apps for both Facebook and Google, all the company apps they use internally, all the pre-released beta versions of apps that are meant for the public, but the new versions aren't released yet. They can't do anything with them. I believe Facebook was just given access back after coming to terms with Apple. But, I say good. And I bring this up to basically say, we're not going after this small upstart, bootstrapped, poor little social network Gab because we're in the big pocket of, we're in the pocket of big Silicon Valley or something like that.
Yeah.
Facebook, Google, Apple, they all have their own problems, and it's nice to see them all going at each other for privacy reasons and trying to one up each other as the better company for privacy. But they're all terrible in that aspect. They all need ways and ways to go. And we're not going after Gab because we're in their pocket or something. Gab is horrible in their own right. I don't really go after DuckDuckGo, who's sort of this, privacy activist search engine, because everything I've seen from DuckDuckGo has been good. They're not.
That's a very good point. Is that like
they always bring up these same people whenever you see these are the free speech websites to support. They put Gab with DuckDuckGo.
I use DuckDuckGo, and I would use a if there was somehow a clean version of social media. I don't think there's. It's just a dirty business, in my opinion, personally. But if there was some clean version, that I could feel like, and I don't mean clean in terms of content, but I could feel, less, in the dirt with. I probably would be all about that. But I will tell you, since you mentioned these things of what Gab is doing, whatever. You had mentioned Utsov Sanduja when he and Ekrem, I believe his name was. These are two. It was, I believe, Turkish. Those two people had a good amount of shares. I believe there's 9 million shares, like the initial pool that was created, and whatever. And now the shares that belong to them evaporated, and Torba has all of the shares now because he's the guy. So he's betting extremely, extremely hard on the SEC picking this up. It's going to do that to underwrite their losses, which are substantial. Gab lost $160,000 in the first half of 2018. So that is before the Tree of Life terror attack.
Wow.
He pays himself a salary of $80,000. There's a lot of people who have speculated on the site that he's doing all kinds of other things to get money and things like that. I don't know anything about that. All I know is what's in our reporting, which shows that he is betting extremely huge on this SEC thing, and he needs that. He needs that, and there are financial experts with whom we consulted, and I just want to point out our Follow the Money reporter, John, who handled a lot of the really difficult numbers stuff for this is so much better at talking about this than I am. But from what I understand from reporting on it, is that if he can he's gotten a small cluster of investors to float $1 million for those first 2 years. $1 million or more for both those first 2 years. If he can somehow get this stock offering approved, he has a chance to really make a lot of money all of a sudden, and he is betting big on that. That's basically what Gab is right now. So
right.
So trying to get the end zone on that. I don't know. So far, the SEC has not been responsive. And for understand, it's not a good sign for him, but that is what he's trying to do.
It's incredible to see, basically, and you mentioned this a few times, but I think it's a good way to end this. Usually people who are on these websites, This is putting aside the most important stuff, actually, getting down to just basically the future of Gab. Usually people on these websites, there are people who this term is terrible. I hate using it, but it's the term that people like to use on these social networks, who stand for Twitter, stand for Facebook. Like, they love these social networking platforms.
Yeah.
And I don't see how a site like Gab, with all their real problems that we've discussed in length now, I don't see how Gab has a future when its own user base, who is horrible for what they do and believe, what they share on the site and what they believe and post on the site, basically hates the site itself too. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting that you should mention. I mean, the far right, the people on the far right, love their social media accounts. I mean, it is like you got like these people, and it's like like for instance, Penovich, who does the Right Stuff Network. So like emotionally goes on these like tirades and things when he loses a Twitter account. It's like, dude, you're 40 something years old, you're 40 something years old. Your whole life is like, is around like your Twitter account. Please just take mine. You can have my blue check or whatever that they care so much about, I mean, just like, it's like so obsessed with it. And I just don't see how Gab is going to overcome people's obsession with being on these mainstream sites. And like I said, I mean, like Richard Spencer, I mean, he needs that Twitter account. Because when you get rid of that Twitter account, I mean, he's just a guy who's most likely, I believe, living, with his mother in Montana or wherever he is right now. And like, somebody like Anglin, he's got his own website and his own audience and whatever and these things. But like, I mean, some of these other guys, I mean, they're hanging on by a thread in their whole world of these accounts, and it just matters so much to them. I did a story about, I don't know if you saw that story about like a Spectre, who was like a Twitter troll or whatever. That guy's been. We listed 20-something accounts, but I think that guy's, there are so many I wasn't able to report on because I couldn't 100% verify, but I think maybe 50, 60. They keep coming back because they want to be on Twitter, and it's just I don't know how Gab will ever overcome that. They'll have the sympathy of those people. They'll have the people who, whenever you say I'm being pushed around by blue check journalists, you can always get these people who get so emotional about these. I'm trying to imagine getting so emotional about like blue check journalists. It's like, wow, this is a really small world. Like, Porzingis was traded today. Like, the Knicks. This is a real serious issue. Like, you should be focused on that. I mean, but like, I'm just trying to imagine, like, it's just getting so like this, my Twitter account. And it's like, how is Gab going to ever break through that? Being on this space means so much to these people.
Right.
It just means so much. It's just, like I said, I keep bringing up Penovich, but it's like he gets kicked off of Twitter and is like, is anyone going to handcuff themselves to Torba's house if they get kicked off of Gab? No. No, I mean, we'll look at Loomer, I mean, it was so, I mean, she just lost it. And like, I mean, or appeared to lose it, I should say. But I mean, then she goes to Gab and she's not posting anymore because it doesn't matter. She's not in the mix anymore.
Right.
Nobody cares on Gab.
Right.
And that's just the reality for these guys. Nobody cares.
Right.
They post on Gab. It's only about the people who enjoy it. They're posting to their community of friends that they met there. And I'm saying that, I mean, white nationalists do have friends, and there's small accounts. They do have friends. And I mean, there's a few of them. That's it. Right. It's a really small website, and you just don't get the same punch.
Right. I think that's a great way to end it. White supremacists. Even they have friends.
They do. Online. Whenever they get bad, one of my favorite thing I love to make. Luke O'Brien.
Right. From HuffPost.
Luke and I used to. I don't want to take your time, but Luke and I always make fun of like these guys who get banned like from Twitter, and then they come back and it's like, hey, I'm looking for my friends, FRENS, like this very childish, like kind of like baby talk kind of thing, and then they'll post like a little baby groiper in like a diaper and stuff, and then it's like then you like find out, like we found out about Spectre, the guy was doing, he's 50. It's like you're 50. I'm looking for my friends. I mean, it's really quite something. Anyway, that's a good. Now I'm really getting warmed up.
Well, maybe we should just restart the episode.
Yeah. Shout out to Sticks. Thank you for coming by.
Yeah, that was a great.
Talk to me offline. You can I blocked you. I can unblock you. Just DM me, or you can get me at michael.hayden at splcenter.org. I'm happy to talk to any of my friends.
And I would be happy to talk to them too. They could DM me on Twitter, my at Matt Binder. My DMs are open. We could set something up on the feed. And if you really want to talk to Michael and want to do it on air, maybe Michael can come on this show, and you can come on this show, Sticks and Ham, or anyone else, and we could
I'm not sure that one's going to get approved by.
Ladies and gentlemen,
be talking to Holocaust denial people.
Well, that's also the funny thing, that free speech to them is that stuff. Like, it's not. It's never.
Denies the genocide of a religious minority. I mean,
right? Yeah. It's not. It's not. Exactly.
It's depressing. Like, when you get down to it, I mean, it's something I don't want to make too much light of it, because it's just awful. It's just soul stirring.
My whole look at this is, if you don't laugh, then you give these guys too much power. And also, if you don't laugh, sometimes.
Well, I enjoy talking to you about it.
All right, thank you. Michael Edison Hayden, senior investigative reporter with the Southern Poverty Law Center. You can find his work on their website at Hatewatch. What is the domain for that? Oof.
just go to my Twitter.
There you go. What's your Twitter handle?
At Michael E. Hayden. And just click on the links that are on there, because I guess.
See, what probably happened
is, I assume.
I'm sure what happened was Southern Poverty Law Center originally had a .ai domain, and then they had to later on rebrand to .com using users' money after not pulling through and providing them with the features that they promised those users who were paying for those features. But that's probably another story, and we could get into the SPLC's inability to provide their social networking customers with their various pro features at another time, Michael.
Yeah, they all read our stuff, which is funny. They do. They really do.
Well, they like reading about themselves. I mean, it's fun. I like reading about myself online.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a good time. All right, Michael, take care. Thank you so much for joining us, and hope to talk to you soon. All
right, it's nice to meet you, Matt.
Nice to meet you too. Take care.
Bye.
All right, folks. This is going to be a fun members half for Patreon listeners only. People watching the live stream can continue to watch. I'm going to shout out the Patreon subscribers and then go into the members only portion of this program. You can support this show by going to patreon.com/MattBinder. That's patreon.com/MattBinder. And by doing so, you help this show grow. I will do more shows. I'll do more live streams. I'll do more videos. I'll do more whatever as the show continues to grow. With the 2020 primary season already in full throttle here. Once Bernie jumps in, I would like to do an extra show a week at least, because there'll be a lot of fun stuff online about my boy Bernie, or as Cardi B calls him, Daddy Bernie, bitch. So let's thank the Patreon subscribers for making this show happen. La-di-da, going to my Patreon account. Should have had this ready, but that's okay. All right. Abigail T, Adam Q, Alan B, Andrew C, Andrew H, Benji A, Bobby M, Brett R, Brian James D, Brooke H, Christine H, Clement C, Colin R, Dank Uger, Dave K, Dragon Slayer, Edward N, Emily M, Fraz K, Francis Z, Ian Curtis J, Jameson Test, Janelle A, Jasmine H, Jeff K, Josh C, Julie, Katie S, Louis from Texas, Marcos R, Max W, User Me. That's not me. I always have to say that for some reason, because I want everyone to know I'm not giving myself $5 a month. Michael J, Michael M, Misfit D, Mr. Danks, Mugrim, Nicole A, Namde Net, Omid M, Robert B, Ramina, Cena, Struggle Session, TM, Tamni G, Thaddeus A, Tom G, Tom M, Trine E, Will P, and Zarin. Thank you guys for making this show possible. You can also support this show by subscribing to the YouTube channel. We recently hit the threshold, both in hours watched and subscribers, to be able to apply for YouTube monetization. If you're listening via the podcast and not in the YouTube live stream, you can come subscribe if you're not already. Doomed.tv will take you right to the YouTube channel. You can also support this show by subscribing on iTunes, the Google Play Store, and all other places where podcasts can be listened to. Leave us a review on iTunes. It's a big help, especially if it's a written review. Those are always good to see because people see the number of written reviews and the number of stars and all that fun stuff, and they go, oh, this show has a lot of that. Must be popular, even if it really isn't. But this show is fairly popular as a podcast, actually. It's the YouTube channel that's growing, and growing it is. And it will continue to grow as long as you guys tune in. So for you freebie listeners, non-Patreon subscribers, I bid you adieu. See you all next time on Doomed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I gotta get some sort of in-between music intro for all you fun Patreon listeners to listen to, Patreon subscribers to listen to, as I wait those couple of seconds to go into this second portion of the program. Usually I go back into the comments and see what was said. This show was a bit crazy comment-wise. If you really want to see all the comments, you can go back to the YouTube live stream replay, and YouTube will repost the comments in the live chat as the show progresses. Like, as they popped up in real time, you can see them. Otherwise, I'd be reading you guys a lot of spoon emojis, a lot of fun. What's that stupid noise 4chan people make? Stupid ass shit. You know, all that fun stuff. A lot of Pepe Frog faces. Really a waste of time. But enjoy seeing the interaction in my YouTube live chat, guys. I appreciate it. So let's see what's what. My favorite thing that was going on was I was called the male AOC, the male Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which honestly is heartwarming to hear that. That was by someone who is a Gab lover, by the way. Someone who was trying to own me. That's probably one of the greatest compliments I've ever received. That was awesome. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And that's not no, I'm not mad online. That really is truly something awesome to hear as I choke, because I've been talking so much without taking a sip of Coca-Cola, which also real weird to see the Gab people focus in on my drinking of my Coca-Cola during the show. Weird to see them care about care about my health, which I'm sure is legit, but B, also having a problem with me drinking a Coca-Cola. It's free market, baby. Maybe Coca-Cola has found their way through the free marketplace onto the Doomed live stream. You ever think of that? Huh. There's also a user named Cactus Jack referring to my Cactus Jack shirt. I will show it on the live stream now. That's right. I'm wearing a Mick Foley Cactus Jack t-shirt. The king of the deathmatch, Cactus Jack. One of the most hardcore wrestlers alive. Also, a feminist. Very progressive. Often does money-raising drives and donates to organizations like RAIN. So it's gotta hurt their feelings, maybe, these masculine guys who get mad when they see a Gillette commercial say something against toxic masculinity. See Mick Foley, hardcore legend, iconic for images of blood pouring down his face as his body falls onto explosive barbed wire, literally. Boards with explosives under them, filled with barbed wire. You know, it's gotta hurt their feelings to see that guy have those sort of politics. Kami says Matt is owned by Big Coke. That's right. That's right. Fortunately, I'd probably be making a little bit more money if I was owned by the other Big Coke. Gotta hand it to YouTube user Nick Bravo, who's been in this chat the entire time. Sent here by Gab. Going on about my exploitation of workers, which is true, as the sole proprietor of this podcast with absolutely zero employees. I produce this show, I edit this show, I do all the technical live streaming of the show, I do all the preparing for the show, the preparation, the booking of guests, all that fun stuff that is involved with doing a YouTube show, a live stream, a audio podcast. That's me. I'm exploiting my workers. No, but really, I enjoy seeing you in the chat. Is Mick Foley Jewish? I don't think so. Dude, if Mick Foley is Jewish, then it is fantastic to see a Jewish guy love Christmas that much. Big Foley, a big Christmas mark. He has a year-round Christmas room in his house. Dank Uger says, take Dragon's call. He's in the Michael Brooks show suite. I can't take calls from Discord. I don't have that set up. But if you give me a second, let me try this. 1 second. I'm going to sign in to the official Doomed Call-In Skype username. And once I do that, I will take bloop bloop. Oh, you guys probably didn't hear that. All right, go on Skype and search for Call Doomed. CALLDOOMED. And I'll take your call. And you'll be on the feed. If you want to do a video, you can even be on the video. Affy Lover says, because you invited us into your head rent-free, I recommend drinking copious amounts of bleach to wash away the cobwebs in your vacuous, empty skull. Well, I mean, you guys were sent here by Gab's Twitter account. You spent the entire, so far, what is this? Hour and a half watching the show. And I guess if that's you living in my head rent-free, then that's cool. Here we go. Let's, 1 second. Let me bring you up on the chat here. We got a call from Theo. How you doing, Theo?
I'm doing great. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Amazing. Can you turn that down? Sorry. Hey, what's up? It's I'm in Brooklyn. I actually haven't watched any of the show. I'm sorry, because there's like 15 of us in this room right now. We're all here in Brooklyn to go to the TMBS thing tomorrow.
Oh, cool. Oh, wow. It's great to see all these TMBS.
But everyone told me to call in. So, yeah, Gab is trash, obviously. We did just watch the show on the big screen just so that, for the view. But yeah, so, yeah, you're just doing a great job, man. We just love you so much. And I just want to say, hey.
Thank you. Can I get a wide shot of the whole room?
Oh yeah. You want to go sideways?
And let's maybe get everybody saying I don't know, fuck Gab or something like that. That'd be
fuck Gab. Yeah.
I'm sure everyone in the chat will love that. Right.
Gab is trash. White people are bad.
Man side now.
Hashtag no more white babies.
Right. No more. Yeah. All right, guys. Enjoy. I wish I could be at the show tomorrow. I have other obligations. I can't come to the show tomorrow. No, I'm missing that one.
Okay, well, we're coming to your house.
Okay. All right.
On Sunday, maybe? Sunday morning?
We can come over.
Do you ever do brunch?
Maybe we can work something out.
Yeah? Get some bloodies, bro?
Where's everybody's from? Where's everybody from, by the way, that you're all coming to New York City to see Michael Brooks?
Michigan.
Pensacola, Florida.
Chicago. South Dakota.
Salem, Mass.
Upstate New York.
To be honest, it sounds like a lot of you guys found a convenient excuse to get out of colder regions of the country.
Oh, we also have Jeff from Georgia, but he's asleep on the thing back there. Can you see him?
Right.
Jeff
Well,
from Georgia.
Jeff from Georgia is probably not worried about the. Oh, I guess he went to a colder place, right? Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Colder place.
I would say he's the odd man out. My true reason for you guys. My conspiracy is legit, other than him. No, but do tell Michael I say hello when you guys are there. I tell him to break a leg. Literally coming from me, break a leg. I'd like to see Michael break a leg on stage. Please get video of that. No, but also very disappointed he didn't invite me to be a guest on the show. Once again, Michael trying to hold down me from once again outshining him like I so often do.
Isn't the problem if you get old Matt and new Matt on the same stage, like the whole reality will tear apart or something?
Yeah, matter and antimatter.
Right. It's it's been I've been in the same room with old Matt.
But not the same stage. If you go on the stage, then
Right. No, that's true. That's true. Oh man. New Matt's been on the stage more than I have with the Majority Report. He's been on the stage twice. I've been on the stage 0 times. There was no live Majority Report show when I was there. So who knows? Maybe if I got on the stage, actually, there'd be the Halloween special episode or the April Fool's Day special episode, but live.
Yeah, I'd go to that.
I don't know if you guys remember this.
How about April 20th?
I don't know if you guys. Right. I don't know if you guys were listening then, but the old intro to the Majority Report, Halloween and April Fool's show, where they became a conservative version of the show. It was originally started by what would happen was I would spill a Monster Energy drink on the soundboard. And year after year, 5 years running, I would just so happened to spill a Monster Energy drink every Halloween and every April Fool's Day. And it would transport us into a alternate universe where we were a conservative right-wing talk show. And that's how
KKK show.
That's how that happened, right? All right, guys. Thank you for calling. It's great to see you all. I hope you all watch Doomed. I hope you enjoy tomorrow's Michael Brooks show. Really, I hope it's great. It sure was expensive, and I hope you all get your money's worth. Because you could have seen Sam Cedar and John H. Benjamin for a hell of a lot cheaper.
Yeah, well, we would have, but guess who declared their event before the Majority Report? Very conveniently.
Right. Before you guys go, I have to ask, how many of you guys paid for the VIP treatment?
No.
Is someone raising their hand? The camera's not on them. I need the camera on them.
But I did get the patron one, so it was only it was less money. I didn't pay $75. I definitely did not do that.
Who
Years and impersonations.
who are the guests on the show tomorrow again?
Ask them
Bashkar, Alona, Trevor from Champagne Sharks, and Mike Racine, and crew.
I gotta say, that whole lineup sounds really great. I think what could have made the lineup even better was not just have me on it as well, but remove the weak link on the stage, Michael Brooks, and and it could have been the Michael Brooks show hosted by Matt Binder featuring all those great guests. And I think you guys would have got your $75 worth then.
It'd be the same initials, TMBS.
I gotta say, partially,
Matt Binder.
part of the reason, there's two reasons I didn't call this show the Matt Binder Show. One is because I'm not an egomaniac, and two is because the problem with us having the same initials. And his show was first, just like he announced his live show in Brooklyn before Sam. Michael Brooks has a habit of knowing that he's got to get ahead of everybody else, just so he can be able to pull these things off without being called, having the less popular of whatever it is he's doing.
Gerrymandering.
Right. That is really the perfect way of putting it. Thank you. I guess that's been the Michael Brooks roast portion of this show, everybody. Enjoy, guys. Take care. Have a good night. Have a great weekend.
We're coming over for brunch.
All right.
We're all coming.
Just, take the 7 train, get off at every stop, and you'll find me eventually.
Every stop.
Take care.
Outside now.
All right. Let's go back to the... that was fun. Dank Uger with the Matt Leck shout out, calling him the DIY. Oh, calling me the DIY super producer. New Matt over at the Majority Reports, usually known as the super producer over there. After I left, of course, they pull out the title super producer. Politics understander. Not to be that guy, but Coca-Cola murdered dozens of South American labor organizers and pro-union workers. Right. I'm not defending Coca-Cola, the corporation. We all do. We all enjoy things that have problematic backgrounds. I don't actually. I don't smoke. I don't do any sorts of drugs. I don't drink alcohol. Unfortunately, soda, namely Coca-Cola and Pepsi, Dr. Pepper too. Those are my vices. And energy drinks, like Monster Energy Drink, Rockstar. Yeah, those are my vices. Those are my, like how CM Punk during the Straight Edge Society days, still had, he himself is straight edge in real life. But he's got the Pepsi logo on his arm. Hardcore straight edge guy. So does his vice. We all got him. What can we do?
Sorry.
That was a great call. Really enjoying that. If there was nothing more to give the Patreon listeners of this show, I think that makes it worth it. I should have had them all say left is best. Right, Ryan. That would have been fantastic. Brian says mimosas on Matt. Yeah, I don't drink though. That's the problem. Kami says they come into TMBS. Right. If you see them on tomorrow, Friday, say hello to them. I'm sure they seem like a very friendly bunch. Nick Bravo going on and on about the bourgeoisie and the workers, but sarcastically. Dank Uger says, fuck it, doomed live. Eventually, hopefully. Once there's a Patreon fan base large enough. I mean, the podcast listeners are actually there. But I don't know if they're all... TMBS has been around a lot longer than us. So, maybe it'll get there. It'll get there. Dank Uger says, I have to say again, when they played Matt Binder on the Bomani Jones podcast, he complimented the Doomed name of his podcast. So that was pretty cool. Right. That was great to be on that. I didn't get to talk to Bomani, but we worked out some a small spot on there because he and his show wanted to talk about that Airbnb piece I wrote about the problem with Airbnb and security cams. Dank Uger says Matt has a Pepsi tat. I wouldn't put a corporation on my on that's my one. What was CM Punk thinking? No, I'm just, it's fine. The Pepsi logo is cool, I guess. I mean, I guess the WWE logo? No. Kamkame, new Matt versus old Matt fight. Misha says they better do another live show. I want to meet everyone. Misha, did you just upload a avatar of you yourself? Because it's nice to see put a name to a face. First time I've noticed that. Brian Binder off of the top rope. Kennedy says I like soda and drugs. Listen, as long as you're not hurting anyone else and you're being careful so you don't hurt yourself, because I care about you, I don't care what you do. Have fun. Just be careful. Want to make sure that you're okay. You're using whatever you use responsibly. And if it is unhealthy and bad for you, reach out to me. Let's get you help. Truly, I care about everyone in this chat. I detest the white supremacists and the Gab Nazis and all the terrible people who frequent Gab, even if that doesn't make all of Gab's user base, and the people on Gab who are in here who I haven't just described. You guys too. You free speech warriors too. I think you guys should be deplatformed if you're saying hateful and terrible things and you're causing real hurt in the world. But, get help if you're hurting yourself. And let me tell you, your extremist views are part of those vices that are bad for you. Like smoking a pack a day, doing hard drugs, being an alcoholic, logging on to YouTube and watching far-right video after video after video, whether it's PragerU or Ben Shapiro or Richard Spencer or whoever. The kill stream guys. That stuff is unhealthy for you. And if you guys want to say, well, Coca-Cola is unhealthy for me, consume your right-wing content in moderation. There you go. Go outside. Make friends. Go into neighborhoods that you haven't explored. Learn about new cultures. Frequent a small business. A community-owned small business. Support an immigrant's restaurant. They've got delicious food. Better than America's shit. Give me tikka masala. Give me Peruvian chicken, ceviche. Give me, I don't know, legit Chinese food from Main Street Flushing. Legit Korean barbecue, also best found in Main Street Flushing. Over a plain-ass hamburger on a bun any day. And this is coming from someone who quite enjoys hamburgers. And also, another vice of mine, I eat too much fast food. But Affy Lover. Would Kamala Harris, and I'm reading this on purpose, I've viewed this entire message, so I'm not falling into this. Would Kamala Harris be a senator running for the presidency of the United States if not for the fact that she had an affair with the well-connected, powerful, much older and married Willie Brown? Well, to that I say, it's the dumbest line of attack I've ever heard in my life. Completely irrelevant to who Kamala Harris is and my feelings about Kamala Harris, the areas where I think she's okay and the areas where I think she's horrible. there's literally no reason to go after Kamala Harris in that way whatsoever. Even if you somehow, if TMZ tomorrow pulled out some sort of visual evidence that any of that is true, who gives a fuck? It's bullshit. It doesn't matter. What matters is what Kamala Harris will do that'll affect everyday Americans. And there's some good in her policies, and there's a lot of things to be worried about in who she is, and already how she's backtracked a bit from these certain policies. Whether this is coming from a right-winger, which this has mostly been a right-wing attack, but I also saw a tweet coming from someone who apparently appears on Jimmy Dore's Aggressive Progressive show saying this bullshit. And she's backtracked. She apologized. Don't know what she was thinking to go with this line of attack. Who cares? Kamala Harris's personal life will not affect you or me any way whatsoever. It doesn't matter. Regardless that the attack is sexist and racist. Even that very obvious, legitimate criticism of this stupid line of attack is. You have no reason to do that. And the funny thing about it is, the reason right-wingers go for that angle is because Kamala Harris is actually, not based on some of the things she's for now, but based on her history as, a prosecutor, federal prosecutor. Miss Authority over here. Right-wingers should love her. You guys are bootlickers. You should love that she went after truant kids' parents. But you can't criticize that because you don't really care about the marginalized folks who would actually be hurt by Kamala Harris's time as a prosecutor. You guys don't have a problem with that. So you go after this bullshit. This disgusting crap. Leftists, progressives, liberals, anyone who actually cares about where we're going next in this country. Screw where we go next as a country. Who cares about human beings in general and policy that will literally save lives? You should care about policy. And you should be both commending Kamala Harris for when she puts forward good policy and should be criticizing her for policy that will hurt people. And that's both past, present, and future. And that's my thing. That's what I'll say about it for now. Maybe I'll put out a video about it in greater detail. But off the top of my head, just reading this right now, that's what I want to say. Cactus Jack says ECW. 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 Did you say ECW? I'm repeating myself here because you said ECW. And if you were a true ECW fan, you would have spelt that, not ECW. You would have spelt that EC-dub. Exclamation point. Because the ECW, the Extreme Championship Wrestling chant, is EC-dub, EC-dub, EC-dub. He says, use meth responsibly. Absolutely. Dan Guger says, I was going to make a Balls Mahoney joke. Rest in peace, Balls. Ufool says, if you don't, it's Ufool, excuse me, if you don't, but spelled U-F-E-W-L. If you don't believe in free speech, you don't believe in humanity. Listen, I believe in free speech. I believe that you guys should be able to go on Gab and say your shit and not be arrested and jailed for it. Obviously, unless what you are saying or doing is actually very much meant to and does rile up people to cause violence and harm. But if you're saying some stupid online shit without a call to action or anything like that, I believe you should not be jailed or arrested for it. And that's what free speech is. Activists pushing a company or organization to take action against you guys to make sure there are consequences to what you guys are saying on a private platform has nothing to do with free speech. Now, if Gab was sending, or any of these companies were sending your speech to the government in order for them to use this stuff to arrest you, and it was nothing, again, more than the speech and not, riling people up for real world harm, then that'd be a problem. But that's not what's going on here. Heimdall's Gate. At Matt Binder, please name an extremist view we hold. Well, let's do this. Let's go to gab.com. And let's click that explore button. And let's look at what's trending here on Gab, the popular posts. And let's scroll down, because the first thing are stories. That's basically all. You have a BBC story up top. Very nice. Italy in recession. That's a legitimate news organization. And then you have a Fox News story, a story from Bloomberg Quint. And a PJ Media story. That's what's trending on Gab right now, the news stories. And trending on Gab is a picture of a white guy knocking out, a GIF, I should say, of a white guy knocking out a black man. And the top comments are, he clocked that N-word good. N-word with a glass jaw. A 4chan photo showing a stereotypical, racist image, like a trope version of what racists like to portray a black man as. N-word should all be knocked down. Let's keep going down here. Another top post on Gab right now is from Identity Europa, a white nationalist organization. These are the guys who go around posting about white genocide on college campuses. A thing that's not real. Let's keep scrolling here. We have a photo of Hillary and Barack should be arrested for treason. That's fine. That's not something you'd see trending on Twitter, but let's say that's typical right-wing meme stuff. Fine. It's going after people in power. It's not focusing on someone who's powerless. It's not... Fine. We'll let that slide. I don't think there's a real problem with that, even though it's ridiculous. Like, if that's the type of stuff that was full of was Gab. If Gab was full of your basic boomer conservative meme stuff that you see on Facebook, like the stuff your crazy uncle and your grandma and grandpa who sit around watching Fox News all day post on Facebook, if that's what made the entirety of Gab, then I think you could argue that Gab is basically just a social network for conservatives. That stuff I think it's also legitimate to say that that stuff goes down. It sends people down into a rabbit hole that brings them to the more extremist stuff. But fine, on its face, just that content alone, without looking at what else goes on, what else goes on further than that content specifically, then you could argue that. But that's not what I'm seeing here on Gab. And this is the trending posts. I mean, I could keep going if you guys would like. You know, the RGB conspiracy where she's somewhere in a coma or something. I mean, fine, you want to say that's, again, just a conspiracy theory. But, I mean, that's the type of fake news stuff that spreads on Facebook and Twitter that, you know, those older boomer people see that and share it because they think it's real news, and it causes a real problem in the discourse. If you guys care about legitimate like discussion between the right and the left, you should be against these sort of conspiracy theories because it only serves to hurt the discourse. That's the stuff I'm seeing on Gap. I mean, don't know what else to tell you. This is the trending stuff on Gab. And this is on a day where the big story in conservative land is those pro-choice abortion laws that passed. I mean, here's another one on the trending. Cultural Marxists say race is a social construct. Reality says, no. And it's pushing this bullshit race science stuff with a really ugly meme that shows a white, the old school, like, English explorer in Africa. The conqueror type thing. Him taking a picture with a bunch of native Africans. And the point of the picture here is that look at the white man. He's dressed sophisticated. He's dressed sophisticated. It's late. He's sophisticated in his dress. And here you have people living in Africa dressed in their native garb. This must mean the white man is smarter and he's more advanced. Give me a break. This is the type of stuff, this ugly shit is the type of stuff that you're saying isn't problematic? I mean, don't know what else to tell you. That's your website. And I just told you, I'm fine with these dumbass memes that go after old bummer. Like, it's dumb. I would say it hurts the discourse if that's what you guys really care about, free speech. The lock her up. But I mean, again, I'd give you guys a pass if Gab was boomer Facebook. But it just isn't. It's just not. Same person just asked, what do you think of Tulsi Gabbard? I think she's a terrible presidential candidate. Too much baggage. Her anti-LGBT history is a little bit more than just, evolving on civil unions and same-sex marriage. But I think as an ally to see that, give her the benefit of the doubt there as someone who wants to help elect someone like a Bernie Sanders, like her endorsement there, I think. The people of Hawaii obviously like her. She's been voted in as a Democrat there. Her anti-war views are very much welcome, and I think that's an important voice to have. I wouldn't vote for her as president, but I would welcome her endorsement to a candidate like Bernie Sanders, just like I welcomed it back in 2016. based on how she's evolved on a number of issues. There's a number of worrisome things, such as her support for, nationalist groups, Hindu groups in India. Really problematic there. If she didn't do a complete 180 in every other fashion, I would not be able to support her even minutely. But I think it's important to have someone like that who you can basically say, look, this person was like that and saw that these leftist ideals will actually help people, and she agrees she was wrong. And she'll probably turn around on a number of other issues too and become more of a leftist. But not someone I want to see as president. Probably not someone I want to see in the Senate either. Too much power there. As one of a couple hundred Congress people in the House, I think it's fine. If you guys want to float a more progressive candidate to defeat her, someone who will support Medicare for all, someone who will support a living wage, someone who will support free college, someone who will support anti-war ideals, run the gamut with these leftist ideologies, I'm into it. If you're gonna put forward some basic Democrat, some generic centrist, then no, I don't think it's worth the trade-in. If anything, I would say it's pretty neutral, actually. At the very least. Tank user Uger says, I met Kamala Harris once. She seemed nice, but I also was once dragged to a meeting at the police department where they threatened to arrest my mom because I ditched school a lot in high school. Jeez. Kennedy says, fuck Tulsi, she sucks. Right. I mean, I'm not saying, woo, yay Tulsi. I'm just saying, if someone's truly changed that way, we could continue pushing them towards the left, and maybe they're a good sort of, I don't know, test subject to show to people, like some of the Gab users in here, maybe. Catfish Jack says, ECW baby, Elks Lodge. I went to a number of Elks Lodge shows. I was actually probably one of the youngest people there, if not the youngest person. 12, 13-year-old me, late 90s. I was there for a number of big ECW moments, actually. Sid Vicious's return to ECW. The Dudley's last show. Raven's return to ECW. When Shane Douglas put his boots, hung up his boots, that famous promo. Jeez. I was also there for both one-night stands, the real ECW one-night stands, 2005, 2006 at the Hammerstein. Man, ECW was great. So any of you guys who think I'm some sort of anti-free speech, prude, SJW gone wild, I'm an ECW fan, and I'm telling you, it's possible to do this sort of edgy stuff without being a piece of shit about it. Edgy stuff, quote unquote, I should say. I mean, ECW was a different time and place, and what they deemed as that isn't probably at all deemed all that crazy or edgy now. But you can do things that are anti-PC and not be a piece of shit about it. In fact, one of the most anti-PC bands I could think of out there is one of my favorite bands, if not my favorite band, Leftover Crack. And they fucking hate white supremacists, hate Nazis, speak out for marginalized groups, speak out for the LGBT community, speak out against the cops. And they ain't PC about it. Far from it. So you could be anti-PC and not be a piece of shit. Yeah, these leftover Gab guys who left after the ones who stayed, my usual Doom listeners are saying they're sort of not as good as like the Sticks and Hammers. They're giving some good stuff. This You Fool guy who is dropping the N-word in the chat, not one of those guys who were giving me some good questions. I'm being asked who's racist, who's a Nazi. By some of the Gab people. For example, the guy dropping the N-word in the chat, he's a racist. It's also interesting that the Gab people like Tulsi. Reading these comments. Kami points out that David Duke and Richard Spencer like her for a reason. Also, some conservatives standing her. Again, that's why I don't want her to be the face of the movement. But having her support someone who's a leftist, I don't see a problem. Being that she really isn't a Richard Spencer or a David Duke. I would say the fact that they like some of her views is very problematic and what we need to address. But she is not Richard Spencer or David Duke. These Gab people, man. Tulsi's the only one with center support. You guys really don't get the political spectrum, do you? If you want to run a centrist, Kamala Harris probably, or even Biden is probably that centrist. You guys should look at some of the stuff they've done. Dank Uger says, has Matt Binder ever heard the tape of Sid Vicious not coming to an indie show because of the immigration ban? I have not seen that. And I'm a pretty big wrestling fan. Please send that to me. Politics Understander using the SpongeBob meme voice. You're literally Hitler if you don't let me do racism. Right. Dank Uger says Matt Binder has heard a lot of Bubba Ray Dudley and New Jack promos, is what he's saying. Right. Also, fun story. And I've told this before. I'm not sure if I told it on Doomed, though. At an ECW show at the Elks Lodge. Back in the late 90s, probably 98, 99. Dudley Boys was talking shit to, we were in the ring talking shit to a guy in the balcony of the Elks Lodge in Queens Boulevard. Talking so much shit at this guy that he jumps off the balcony. Like he climbs down, dangles, and lets go and jumps off. And he lands straight on my dad. Atlas Security ran over, threw the guy off my dad, helped my dad up, asked my dad if he was okay, probably really worried that he was going to press charges or something, or sue ECW. He said he was fine, and that was that. Looking back, what we should have done is asked to go backstage, meet all the wrestlers. We didn't do that, but it's a great memory we have. Great father-son memory. Dudley Boys caused the guy to jump off of the Elks Lodge balcony and crush my dad. Mira says, when Gab sends people, they don't send their best. Right. Dank Uger, it's also interesting that the Gab people hung around for the after hours. Listen, I welcome anyone to watch this show. Have you ever seen me turn down having a conservative or any sort of guest on this show? I'm going to shut you down on my show if you start spewing bullshit. But I'll debate you. I'll have you on to actually try to have some sort of legitimate conversation. Legitimate back and forth debate. Even if it's shit talk. I'm not gonna let you come on this show and say the Holocaust was a lie without me shutting you down and debunking that immediately. But you want to actually come on with substance? I've never turned anyone down. I've had the Kent State Gun Girl on this show. I've had Kevin Martin, friends with Donald Trump Jr., former Turning Point USA activist, on this show. When I was on the Majority Report, I took calls from libertarians, took calls from conservatives, took calls from Gamergaters, took calls from 4chaners, 8chaners, took calls from the Kotaku and Action Redditors. You ain't gonna get me with this censorship, anti-political correctness bullshit. Political correctness bullshit, I should say. Politics Understander. Matt, you ever listen to Jim Cornette podcasts? He's surprisingly progressive besides still clinging to the women are fragile, must be protected, no high spots. I'm familiar with the podcast. I haven't listened to it very much. I should get on top of that. I should invite Jim Cornette on the show. Cactus Jack says, I was literally probably 30 feet from you at the Elks. If you watch some of the old ECW on ECW TV shows that are on the WWE network from that time, emanating from the Elks Lodge, you'll probably see me in a number of episodes leaning over the guardrail by the entranceway, giving RVD and Sabu pats on the back. I was right there. Got a picture with Jerry Lynn. He came out, took a picture with us. Me and my buddies who came to the show. Took home a table piece that Sabu fell through. I believe I was there for the first time Masato Tanaka and Mike Awesome fought, which to me, the all-time greatest all-around series of wrestling matches is Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome. Every single one. Put that series in one playlist, and you have probably one of the greatest feuds in wrestling history. All around greatest wrestling feuds, if you want to talk wrestling style. Just fantastic. That includes the One Night Stand 2005 match that literally stole the pay-per-view. The one match where 0 guys were on the WWE roster is the match that stole the show. My dad jumped in the chat to say he was thinking about the time the guy fell on him from the balcony too. Dank says, I've learned well from Sam Cedar. My dad points out how the Dudley Boys would yell at women, would challenge that woman. One of the shows we went to, Dudley Boys challenged a girl to show them her tits, and she did, and Bubba yelled, "You're still ugly." Now listen, that sort of stuff during the 90s, it was a different time, but still, if you want to argue, they were heel wrestlers playing up a gimmick, and the woman who lifted up her shirt and flashed them did it of her own volition. It was her choice to do so, and she was having a great time laughing about it. And that's that. So, I mean, there's ways to do anti-PC stuff that both fits into storylines where the message is, these guys are pieces of shit. that both in the real world allows a woman, or we could use any other marginalized group as an example, to choose to do things that they want to do. They have the power to do that. There was a time probably where that woman wouldn't have even been allowed to attend a wrestling event. Attend any sort of live event with men present. It would have brought shame on her family. And that's where we've moved. That's right. I just turned a late 90s Dudley Boys promo, ECW Dudley Boys promo, into an example of how progressive values actually work. And as a response to the anti-PC, anti-SJW right-wingers. I pulled that off. I think I did. Dank Uger says my dad is a wrestling legend up there with Mrs. Dad. Cactus Jack says, yes, I was at that Tanaka match. I'm on the tape. I had an embarrassing sign that said Japan sucks. I loved Mike Awesome. Rest in peace. Underutilized talent, Mike Awesome. Could have been a big star in WWE. Shouldn't have been a joke wrestler in WCW. ECW treated him well. ECW knew how to use him. Even the Gab people are saying hi to my dad. Wrestling brings people together. Maybe we should have, how they have Obama with his beer summit. Maybe I should have a wrestling summit. Politics Understander. The belt they made for Brian is fucking gorgeous. That hemp belt is great. Another example of how you could spread progressive messages, leftist values as part of storylines, and without being PC about it. Ooh, political correctness. You don't got to do that. Brian's being a cool heel about it. In fact, the funny thing is, years back, when I was super into punk rock, I still am super into punk rock, but years back when I had the time to go to literally 2 or 3 punk shows a week. Now I just listen to a lot of punk music, pay attention to everything going on, and just don't have the time to go to any shows. But back when I also went to all the punk shows every week, I came up with, and I was also a wrestling fan at the time. I've been a wrestling fan for as long as I've been alive, thanks to my dad. I thought of an angle based on this old, militant vegan punk band. I believe they were called the Vegan Reich, and it was a play on words, obviously. There you go, Gab, guys. That's right. There was a punk band named the Vegan Reich, and their whole thing was like a shtick. And I came up with an angle about a militant vegan. And he would create this group where he would turn people, he'd beat the shit out of people and make them join basically make them become vegan. Sort of like what CM Punk did with the Shredded Society. And it's cool to see Daniel Bryan do a more mainstream version of that now. I'm not saying he stole it from me because that's ridiculous. It's just an idea I had that I told no one about. Probably did it with my wrestling figures back when I was a preteen with my old Jax WWE figures. Cactus Jack, exactly. In the 90s, we had comedy that was shocked because people understood it was wrong. Now with the racism coming to the surface, you can't expect anyone not to be racist and horrible anymore. You can't tell if it's in jest or not. Politics understand her. It kind of seems like they're giving him the straight edge society gimmick, but hippies instead of straight edge. Right. I think that's cool. I mean, there's a lot of, like, I don't know how you would do that angle without there being overlap. There's just some things that are analogous. And that's what's happening here. Dragon Slayer says, hey, Binder, I know you won't be at the show, but how about Daddy Binder? No, he's not going to Michael Brooks' show either. Cactus Jack, Vegan Reich was not tough, tongue-in-cheek. Those hardline people didn't fuck around, and they also didn't jerk off. They were the incels of the late 90s. You know what? I meant to say good, clean fun was the tongue-in-cheek version. And that my idea came from, thank you for correcting that. And my idea for the heel angle came from the Vegan Reich. Thank you for correcting me there, Cactus Jack. Good Clean Fun's probably one of my, up there with Cactus Jack is one of my favorite bands of all, Cactus Jack. Cactus Jack are my favorite wrestlers of all time. But Good Clean Fun up there with Leftover Crack is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I'm saying wrestlers again. I'm tired. This will probably be the end of the show. Good Clean Fun is up there with Leftover Crack as one of my favorite bands of all time. They were the tongue-in-cheek version of the vegan hardliners. My heel wrestling angle was based on the Vegan Reich. Ooh. But thank you, Cactus Jack. Did you like Good Clean Fun? You Fool says intersectionalism is racist and sexist. And Misha points out that he called it intersectionism, which is pretty hilarious. Thank you, Misha. I really want to hear Cactus Jack say whether he knew of Good Clean Fun and is a fan of Good Clean Fun. Oh, well. Oh, right. My Twitter, because someone mentioned it. I had a tweet today that friggin' blew up big time. I usually wouldn't point it out because it's not anything crazy, but this tweet literally got covered and by a lot of outlets, and like Jordan Peele and John Stamos and Patton Oswalt and a whole bunch of people spread it. And that was pretty crazy. Has something like 150,000 likes, like 35 or 40,000 retweets. It was because I pointed out that Donald Trump Jr. in a tweet said SNL, but spelt it S ampersand L. Like S ampersand, which, you know, stands for AND, end. Like Saturday End Alive. Not SNL, an acronym for Saturday Night Live. And that's really funny. So that was fun. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good night. Hope you all enjoyed the patrons portion of the show. If you're listening via the YouTube live stream, then thank you for joining me for the show. Become a Patreon subscriber, patreon.com/MattBinder. Help me expand to more episodes per week, especially with that primary season coming up. And have a good night. Oh, wait, Cactus Jack jumps in. I knew Good Clean Fun really wasn't my thing. I was more into no redeeming social value of comedy bands. Also the Warped Weeble Wobbles, mostly Long Island and New York City bands at that time in my life. And with that, I'll end it with, hey, Cactus Jack. I believe, if I remember correctly, the lyric goes like this. You don't like me and your boyfriend's a Guido. It's been a while since I heard that song, but great band, great song. Have a good night. See you all next time. And the Norwegian says, Trump wasn't sure which N-word was racist. That was great. That was funny. All right, everyone. Take care. Have a good night. See you all next time on Doomed.